Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Cray's Books. So I believe that this is the first book tag that I'm doing on this channel, which is wild to me because I do book tags on my blog all of the time. I just haven't taken the time to do them on this channel yet, but I have been tagged in quite a few. And I thought this one was a perfect one to start off with because we're coming to the end of 2021 and there's a lot of end of the year wrap up kind of things that we have to do, and I thought that this tag was a perfect way to give you a glimpse into my 2021 year of reading. So this is called Year in Review, and the person who created this tag, they're from Dominish Books, and I just followed them on BookTube and I'm already really into his content, so I'll leave him linked down below. But I was originally tagged by Kristen from Kristen's Fully Booked. We really have become friends through this platform. We talk on Instagram once in a while. We always tag each other in these kind of things. We actually buddy read a book I'm going to mention in this video, so check her out as well. And we share a name, which is just fun. So I think there's just a few questions, less than 10, so we will dive right into it. And the first one is a simple one and a spoiler for a future video, and it is favorite book of the year. And actually, normally I have a standout favorite. Last year I read the 5th season and I knew that was it, but this year there were a few that I could choose from, but I ultimately settled on Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke because I read this I think in February and it has stayed with me ever since. The writing in here is beautiful. Susanna Clarke has become an author who I really want to explore more. I know she has Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and that is a huge book, I think over 1,000 pages, but I do want to try it because if I could spend 1,000 pages with Susanna Clarke's writing, I will be happy with that. The world that she builds in Pure Nessie is so beautiful. It's one of those books you cannot even describe because it's indescribable. The main character is Pure Nessie. He is living in a house that really is his whole world. There are oceans inside this house, creatures, statues, and the only person he interacts with is somebody he calls the Other. And there's maybe something more sinister happening here, but you'll fall in love with Pure Nessie, and the book reads like these are his journal essays. It's brilliantly done and I highly recommend it. I had, as I said, there were a few that I could choose from, but when I was looking at my pile, this is really the one that stood out for me, and I thought, why am I even questioning it? You know it's Pure Nessie. It was my favorite book. Halfway through the year, nothing has surpassed it, so this is definitely going on to my favorite books of all time shelf. Next question is your favorite series that you started and didn't finish. So there are quite a few series that I started, like a lot. I actually did a whole blog post on this. I'm doing Bookmas over on my blog, and one of them was all the book series that I started in 2021, and I think it was over 20. It was ridiculous, but I need to get better at doing series. And there was one that I started this year that is a complete series. The final book just came out and I really need to get to it. So I read Jade City by Fonda Lee, no surprise here, earlier this year. Fell in love with it, cried my eyes out. Fonda Lee, Not Afraid to Go There. Love this world so much. I talk about this book a lot. And then I instantly bought Jade War. I actually bought this as I was reading Jade City because I knew I needed it, and then I never picked it up because I am who I am, terrible at series. And then the third one, Jade Legacy, just came out and I haven't bought a copy yet, but I do really want to get to this, high priority for next year. I would love to finish the series in 2022. So that is definitely my favorite series that I started and hadn't finished. And then related to that, the next question is the favorite series that you finished, and of course I have an obvious answer for this one, and it is, let me just grab the books here, Reread. So Reread is one of my favorite books of all time. This book came out last year, absolutely adored it. I actually have a signed copy, and this made me fall in love with YA fantasy. The found family trope, I really discovered that the found family trope is my favorite trope after I read this book. And then it's a duology, and the second and final book, Redemptor, came out in the summer and I loved it. I didn't think that it would be able to hold a candle to Reread because I just love this so much, but it really held its own. You get even more found family in here. The connections between the characters get even deeper. The world goes to some interesting places. You fall in love with Terrasai even more. So this is by far the best series I finished this year, but I did finish some stellar series, but this one stands out and is one that I will talk about and continue to talk about all the time. But I also finished the Brown Sisters series this year. I loved Act Your Age, Eve Brown. I finished Abby Yemenez, the Friend Zone series, Life's Too Short, so I finished some good romance series as well, but yeah, the Ray Bear duology is my favorite, not just of the year, probably of all time. The next question is your favorite new author that you discovered this year, and I don't own this book yet. I listened to an audiobook from Libro FM, but it is on my wish list, my Christmas wish list, and that is The Inheritance of Accordia Divina by Zoraida Cordova. So Zoraida Cordova is an author whose writing I instantly fell in love with. From the first paragraph, I knew I was gonna love this. There's something about magical realism that really works for me when it works, and I know that that is a genre that can be hit or miss for a lot of people, but I am drawn to it. I love Anna Marie McLemore. I love that whole flowery magical realism vibe, and you get that in droves in this book. And I know that Zoraida Cordova has more of a YA backlist that I want to explore, so I've added all of those to my TBR, and one of my goals in 2022 is to really dive deeper into her work because her writing is just fantastic. The next question is your new favorite character of the year, and I actually have two. The first one is again from a book I don't own, but it is on my Christmas wish list, and that is the robot from A Song for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I love these kind of characters. Don't get me wrong, I loved the monk in this book as well, but the robot really just has my heart, and this happens to me with all of Becky Chambers' works. Nobody writes really memorable, heartfelt characters that have deep conversations and good insights, but are just so charming in the way that Becky Chambers does. So I got all the characters that I loved in A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I got similar vibes in A Song for the Wild Built, and I cannot wait for the sequel, so I love the robot in that. And then my second favorite character is a character from Project Hail Mary. Now this is a book that was a contender for one of my best books of the year, but there's a character in here that I can't even tell you about because their mere existence is a spoiler. So I just wanted to put that out there, but if you know, you know. So yeah, that is such a fantastic book. Then favorite new release of this year, I could have said Project Hail Mary or Redemptor, but I wanted to go with something different, and another contender for my favorite book of the year. So you're gonna see these books again soon, but this is Claire in the Sun by Kazu Ishiguro, which came out earlier this year and I absolutely loved. Kazu Ishiguro wrote Never Let Me Go, which is arguably my favorite book of all time, and Claire in the Sun gave me such similar vibes to that book. I read The Remains of the Day by him this year and loved it as well, but completely different. This one has the same sci-fi elements of Never Let Me Go and is exploring some moral and ethical questions. I love the way that Ishiguro makes you think about life in that way. I've discovered I love any book that has to do with AI or clones or robots, and this has that, especially when they're talking about the ethics behind it. So this is just so beautiful in so many ways. Next question is your favorite reread of the year, and I'm not a rereader. I really wish I were. Something I want to work on. And I only reread one book this year, and it is the book that I buddy read with Kristen from Kristen is Fully Booked, but I'm so glad that we read this together because I love this book. I loved it more this time than the first time, and that is Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. This is the first prequel in the Practical Magic series, which can be confusing, but this, if you are familiar with the Practical Magic story at all, if you've seen the movies, you know that it follows a family of witches who are cursed, the Owens family, and they are destined to have their true love die. So this is the origin story of that curse and how that all goes down. So it's set in Salem in the 1600s, and we go all over the world, really. It starts in London, then we go to Curacao, then we go to Salem, New York. You're following Maria Owens, and it's just beautiful and everything I love about witchy stories and historical fiction. And I know that it's not typically Kristen's genre, but she enjoyed it as well, so love that. And then I read the last book in that series this year as well, and having read that one first, again, to compare them both was so much fun for me. Next question is your biggest surprise of the year, and hands down that is Finlay Donovan is killing it, and this is by Al Cosmano, and I'm actually reading the sequel. I have an e-arc for the sequel. I'm reading it right now, and that is Finlay Donovan Knocks Him Dead, and I love it. I thought it was gonna be too goofy for me and just not work, because sometimes humor doesn't work for me in books and it maybe crosses the line, because this is a mystery, but it's fun. And you know going in that Finlay Donovan has accidentally killed someone, and she gets herself into all these trouble. She's an author and she's talking about her new book with her publisher, and somebody overhears her and thinks that she is somebody who will murder for hire. So it all kind of falls apart from there, and it's so much fun. I love so many of the side characters, and I knew it was getting a lot of buzz, but I just didn't think it'd be something I loved. But I'm glad that I tried it and that I gave into the hype, and that it really, really worked for me. Then of course the next question is your biggest disappointment of the year, and this one really is upsetting to me. It's not that this is a bad book, but it's one that I was really, really excited about, and it really let me down, and that is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas, who I love. Cemetery Boys, one of my favorite books of last year. Aiden Thomas can write. I will read anything that they release from here on out, but Lost in the Neverwoods, I know that that was their dissertation, or they wrote that in college, and technically it was their first book, and you can kind of see it. And I normally love Peter Pan retellings, but this one just didn't work for me because I think I prefer my Peter Pan retelling set in Neverland, not in modern day. And I just hated Peter in this. He's an awful character to begin with, but somehow he was worse in this. I wasn't invested in their romance or in Wendy or in any of it, and it's just too bad. And I thought it would be more atmospheric, but we won't harp on it too much. It was not a bad book by any means, but it did let me down. Last question is the one book that you would recommend to anyone, and of course I cheated and I picked two, but one's a nonfiction and one's a fiction. So the nonfiction title is Empire of Pain, which I'm sure you've heard about. It is by Patrick Radden Keefe, and it's so obvious to me that this is something that the author is passionate about. They put a lot of research into this, and they actually put themselves in danger to write this book, because kind of talks about it a bit in the book about how he's being followed. He thinks a family has hired somebody to follow him, and it's kind of terrifying, but it's such a book that's worth reading, worth writing. So it's about the Sackler family and their involvement in the opioid epidemic, and really dives deep into the history of this family and how they started and how they got to now, and it's just incredible. I learned so much. Highly recommend it on audiobook because the author narrates it, and I love when an author is a good narrator as well. And then the fiction recommendation is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, and this is actually a thriller, but I think that this has wide appeal, and that people who are lovers of many genres will take something from this book. We are following two main characters who are fathers whose sons were married to each other, and those sons are murdered, and the fathers have never really gotten along. They had complicated relationships with their sons, but they come together seeking revenge, and I love revenge stories, and this one is pretty incredible. Cried my eyes out at the end. The only reason I would say maybe you might not like it is if you're not into violence, because it is rather violent, but other than that, if you can handle that, universally recommend it. So that is it for this tag. I will be doing similar, my top 10 favorite books of the year, more disappointments, things like that, but I thought this was a good video to start off all this wrap up, end of the year wrap up with. If you do any similar tags or videos, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, liking the videos. You mean so much to me. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now.